your government, the government of Keir Starmer, Labour Party,
Yeah.
not everyone's favorite guy. They did not have many words to say after a British citizen was targeted in an Israeli airstrike, and of course this goes for their position, regarding the attacks on civilians across the region. It is very different from Keir Starmer's position, perhaps on the war in Ukraine, which you have also extensively covered. So,
Yeah.
were you surprised, I guess, that they did not? I mean, I saw that their position on the attack against you was to refer to their position on Israel's war in Lebanon, which was like, we hope it ends. And they didn't really condemn the attack against you. So, what was your reaction to this? Were you surprised? And I mean, why does Labour love war so much?
Well, I'm not surprised in the slightest, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't even bother to read the statement. I saw that friends of mine from Declassified UK had contacted the government, and I just saw this line saying that the British government has outlined or the Foreign Secretary has outlined the government's position on the Middle East, obviously using the colonialist term for this part of the world, in a statement to the Commons last Tuesday. And I didn't bother to read that statement because you can pretty much guess what it's going to say. Was I surprised? Not in the slightest, because as some people may know, but if they don't, my own government is currently investigating me under terrorism charges. This is last July. I was returning back to the UK for a family visit. I took a direct flight from Beirut, and I was met off the airport by two undercover counter-terror police, and they quizzed me. They got me straight away. They were waiting for me off the plane. They bizarrely asked me, "Where did you come from?" And I was like, "Well, I'm still on the walkway." Very obvious where I came from. And they took me into a room. They took my DNA. They fingerprinted me. They took my photographs. They took all of my electronic devices. They
Wow.
told me that I had to answer their questions. Failing to answer their questions could have led to a prison sentence. There we go. There's the electricity.
Our audience is well attuned to the Lebanese electricity cuts because they watch my show so often. It'll come back. But sorry, continue. Blair Witch Project style here.
So yeah, it's great. It kind of fits the mood. This is a little bit like the interrogation. But they took my electronic devices.
Wow.
They told me that here we go. They told me that if I didn't answer their questions, I could end up with a prison sentence just for that. I had no access to any kind of lawyer or any legal advice or legal support. And the questions that they asked me, first of all, they started about Russia, whether Russian officials have instructed me to carry out some kind of secret mission in Britain, whether I have any contact with Russian officials. They were concerned about the nature of my finances and this kind of thing. There were some fairly intrusive kind of questions. They asked me which cities I'd visited and worked in Russia. So I stuck to their notion of what Russia is, and I told them the cities that I'd worked in: St. Petersburg, Volgograd, Moscow, etc. I didn't mention Donetsk or Lugansk or Mariupol because for them that's Ukraine. So I answered the question entirely on their terms. So they were asking me questions about that. Then they came to Lebanon, asked me about my contacts with Hezbollah. They knew that I'd worked in Yemen and asked me about my contacts with Ansar Allah in Iraq. They asked me about Hash al-Shabi. So I ticked pretty much every box for them. Have I disappeared off the screen?
We can hear you though.
I don't know why.
You can hear me. Okay, that's good. That's good. It's probably a good thing. They were very interested.
It's really trying to give like the atmospherics of this interrogation.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, they asked some very intrusive kind of questions. They asked me if I loved my country, which I replied I don't, because it's true. And I said, but in a democracy, you're entitled to be able to criticize your leaders, right? That's
is the UK a democracy though? Good question.
No, of course not. Of course, it's not. There's no democracy in the United Kingdom at all. So they were very concerned about this. They asked me that I told them that I was a communist, and they said, "Oh, what does that mean? And so I explained the ABCs of communism to them, and I told them it's not illegal to be a communist in Britain yet. I'm sure that's not too far around the corner. So we're talking now nearly a year later from this, and of course, even the situation in Britain now, the political situation in Britain is so bad. You've all seen the images of old ladies being arrested and treated as terrorists for supporting Palestine action. Which is currently being again challenged by the government. That I think that decision was ruled unlawful, and then the government is challenging that decision. I mean, it's astonishing the amount of effort that they're putting into this really. So the pictures, some of the pictures that I have on my electronic devices, I mean, one of them at least with a huge billboard of Syed Hassan Nasrallah behind me, which I took in South Lebanon, I guess around 5 years ago. That's enough to land a 14-year jail sentence now under the new prescriptive anti-terror laws. So effectively, I'm now living in exile from my home country. I had to make
just unbelievable.
Ethiopia.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So that was a very long-winded way of answering your question. Are you surprised by your government's response or lack of response? And the answer is no. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of collude in some way. Because it's not the first run-in that I've had with the authorities. The similar things have happened to me in Ukraine, in Turkey, in Mexico City on the way to Nicaragua, and I wouldn't be surprised at all because there was no action from the British government in any of those cases, and I wouldn't be surprised if they colluded somewhere along the way.
Potentially. Well, Steve Sweeney, we want to thank you so much for joining us and giving us the updates from the ground. Your reporting has been so important. You're in Lebanon now. I encourage everyone to follow you, and hopefully we can get you back on soon. Thank you so much for your bravery and ongoing persistence in telling the truth.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.